Mr. President, it does not take a genius to see that something is stalling the American economy. Now, the economy's been better lately. I think, frankly, in anticipation of the United States Congress passing these tax cuts. But the fact remains that 2016 was the 11th straight year that our economy, the greatest economy in the history of the world, the strongest economy in the history of the world, even when it has the flu, 2016 was the 11th straight year that we have failed to achieve 3% annual growth, which has been our average every year since 1960. Now, something's wrong. And those experts I talked about, they tried everything. They tried monetary policy, changing interest rates. They tried deficit spending. Remember President Obama's stimulus program? They tried the Federal Reserve has tried quantitative easing out the wazoo. The experts have tried everything except what they should have done first. And that's let the American people keep more of the money they earn, because they can spend that money they earn better than government can. Now, we've got two groups of policymakers in Washington, D.C. I'm sorry, this is what it's come down to. And I'm not talking about liberals or conservatives. I'm not talking about Republicans and Democrats. The two groups that I'm talking about are as follows. We've got one group of policymakers in Washington who believe in more freedom. And we've got another group of policymakers in Washington who believe in more free stuff. Now, I'm not criticizing policymakers for wanting to help people who are less fortunate than us. The fact of the matter is that the United States taxpayer at the state and the local level spends $1 trillion a year helping people less fortunate than us. And that money didn't just fall for heaven. We thank heaven for it, but it came out of people's pockets. We spend $1 trillion a year in our country helping people who are less fortunate than us. In our country, if you are homeless, we house you. If you're hungry, we feed you. If you're too poor to be sick, we will pay for your doctor. And I am very proud of that. So I am not criticizing. In fact, I join my colleagues in wanting to help people who are less fortunate than us. But the fact of the matter is it takes money. And that money is generated by the American taxpayer, and the American taxpayer is not generating very much because the American taxpayer is not making very much. Now, let me talk to you about the middle class. I could talk about the business side of this bill, and this is going to help every business in America. It's going to help C-Corps, LLCs, sub-S's, family farms, single proprietorships. It's going to help large business women and businessmen, and it's going to help small business women and businessmen. But I want to talk about the personal income tax side. This bill will give a tax cut to just about every American. I know our opponents can probably find one or two people under certain circumstances that aren't going to get a tax cut. But the fact remains that if you look at the Joint Committee on the Budget's numbers, if you make between $20,000 and $30,000 a year, on average, you're going to get a 10% tax cut. If you make between $50,000 and $70,000 a year, you're going to get right around a 7% tax cut. If you make $1 million or more a year, you're going to get roughly a 5% tax cut. The middle class, and I consider, we can debate on what the middle class is, but I consider the middle class to be somewhere between 30 and $100,000 a year. You can pick your own definition. They're the ones that I'm concerned about the most, not exclusively the most. And let me tell you what this bill is about in terms of our middle class. This, the wallet, their wallet, because the middle class are angry in this country, and they ought to be angry. They tell me every day, they say, Kennedy, I get up every day, I go to work, I obey the law, I pay my taxes, I try to do the right thing by my children, I try to teach my kids morals, I try to save for retirement, but I'm getting fed up. Because they tell me, Kennedy, I look around and I see a rigged economy. I see too many undeserving people at the top getting bailouts, cutting corners and making deals. And I see too many undeserving people at the bottom getting handouts. And I'm in the middle. And I get stuck with the bill. And I can't pay it anymore, Kennedy. Because my health insurance has gone up, thanks to the Affordable Care Act, and my kids' tuition has gone up. My taxes have gone up, but I tell you what hadn't gone up. My income. Now, these are the American people, the middle class. They're busy earning a living. They may not read Aristotle every day, but they're smart, and they get it. And they know that median household income in America today is basically the same as it was in 1999. And for that, every policymaker responsible for that fact in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere ought to hide their heads in a bag. Now, this bill is going to fix that. And that's why it's so incredibly important that we pass it. Yes, it's important for our business community. Yes, it's important for the large corporations. Yes, it's important to repatriate those trillions of dollars. But at the end of the day, it's important primarily for ordinary people, you and me, the people who get up every day and go to work and obey the law and pay their taxes and have made this country great. They've hurt long enough. With that, Mr. President, I yield to my colleague. We call him a silver-tongued devil. He's so eloquent. From Colorado. I thank the gentleman from